Hey yo, welcome back to Absolute Intense Wrestling's The Card is Going to Change. My name is Ronald Two Legs, and as always, I am with Absolute Intense Wrestling owner John Thorne. What is up, Thorne?
We have survived the fight another day. We're here, and we're not waiting for the week of the show. So,
yeah, there you go.
So, Trombetta, stop your complaining. I've given you enough. I've given you enough this year.
This is like another birthday present for him. Real quick too, before we get started, I did want to, take a pause and a second here. One of our roster members, beloved AIW member Derek Dillinger, lost his father recently. He's just wanted to, pay our respects there and condolences to Derek and his family.
Yeah, terrible situation. There's a GoFundMe out there if you haven't contributed. Derek has been bombarded. He's the only child, so they just not even a year ago, his mother passed away, and they were, they got hit with all that. That's the crazy thing, is like death is like so financially just crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the amount of money everything costs. So they got hit with that, and then now his father unexpectedly passed away. He's been blindsided, and all this falls on him. He's the only child, so had to figure out the funeral and the wake and all that stuff. It's a lot, and his dad has a house, and there's just it becomes a incredible amount of problems, and anything that can be done to try to help him out would be greatly appreciated. Obviously, he did not compete at the 20th anniversary show. He was planning on it, and he had texted me that Friday morning and just said, I can't do it. I just can't bring myself to do it. Which was understandable. So, he's really going through it. I don't know. I mean, who knows what's going to happen as far as, his career and, what he's going to do. I know he's still taking bookings, but going and doing them is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
It's a lot to handle.
Had to be incredibly tough, obviously, for the obvious reasons of losing your parent like that, especially after losing his mom, like you said. But his dad too, it bears mentioning that his dad was a giant wrestling fan and had been taking Derek to AIW shows since he was a kid, you know what I mean, and would always watch Derek's matches and stuff like that too. So obviously, like you said, it's a giant loss, to lose a parent. But for Derek, it was like, he would always, tell him how he liked the match, yada, stuff like that. So, I'm sure it was incredibly difficult to try and get yourself ready to perform.
Yeah. Derek and his dad came to AIW as fans. Derek's dad also, took him to Cleveland All Pro when he was younger. And the sad part is it was an AIW venue and a Cleveland All Pro venue, the West Park Party Center, kind of a legendary Cleveland venue. Everyone talks about Turner's Hall or, these other places, but I really associate Cleveland All Pro with the West Park Party Center. Mm-hmm. That's where they were in the late 90s. That's, into the, early 2000s. And, that's where I saw, I saw the first time I ever saw Reverse Rana. CM Punk hit it on Colt Cabana in April 2001 in the West Park Party Center. I saw, the first time I ever saw Light Tubes, Madman Pondo versus JT Lightning at the West Park Party Center.
Wow.
Superplex through tubes set up on chairs. I mean,
hell yeah.
Legendary legendary stuff happened at the West Park Party Center. AIW went on to run there for several years. Bryan Danielson, Chikara doubleheaders. That's where Haley Hatred and I did our dog collar match. I mean, super legendary Cleveland venue, which is now a funeral home. And while the wake was not in that room, his dad's funeral was at the funeral home that now, the same complex as the West Park Party Center, where his dad took him to shows and, all these, legendary wrestling things happened in the city of Cleveland. So it was crazy, like going and parking in that parking lot again, and it's, Derek had written something about that as well, that, he was, I believe that's probably where their offices are and stuff like that, in that building now that used to be the venue. And he said, he was sitting in the building where him and his dad came so many times to watch wrestling, and now he was, paying for his funeral essentially. And, that's got to be tough.
Yeah. Yeah, so like we said, hearts go out to Derek, too. I just wanted to mention that, hard to start the podcast on a bit of a somber note there, but, just want to make sure that, he knows everybody loves him. We're all thinking about him, so. Going forward, we did want to come on here and talk about, we just recently debuted in a new venue down at the Globe Ironworks in the West Bank of the Flats, I believe, right? It's the West Bank?
West, yeah.
Yeah, West Bank of the Flats. And I was reading reviews, from fans online and in the Discord and all that. Just seemed everybody really loved the place. And I figured we'd come on here and kind of get some of your thoughts and my thoughts. And, in case anyone wasn't there, I know it was basically a sold-out show. I think we had over 600 people in there. But if you weren't able to make it, kind of give you some opinions and thoughts on the building.
Yeah, I would say it's super successful first effort. They ended up capping us initially at 500 tickets, which were sold out in advance. And then they ended up saying they were going to open up 50 tickets, but they actually opened up 100-ish. So we were able to get over that 600. Plus, what I didn't realize until after the fact was like those deck seats, which I believe is another 50 tickets, were not showing up in any of the reports. So we were capped to 500, and that was like not included. So essentially, I think the presale was 550.
Wow.
Because those were sold out as well. So those still were not on my reports, but that's a conversation for another day. But plus the 100 at the door. So I mean, it was fucking packed in there, and they think that they can reconfigure it to maybe get more people in there for Absolution. They were talking about, there's like for people that were in there was like a private bar area for people that purchased the deck tickets. They're talking about potentially putting some seating in there and selling that separately, so you would get access to, that private lounge and all that stuff as well, that the people that buy the deck tickets get. They were, I think that they were pleasantly surprised. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, I walked around in there, after doors, just before the match starts. So basically everyone was in there. And I mean, there plenty of room in there. I didn't think it was crowded at all in any way, I read a bunch of reviews, people talking about like getting drinks with the bar and stuff, and nobody said that there was ever really a long wait, with the bar and anything like that, which, ends up being a really big thing. You kind of almost laugh about it, you gloss over it, but we talk about a lot of times with the vibes and stuff like that. You want to have some beverages. A lot of our fans are, going to have some beverages, but nothing pisses you off more than you're in line and match starts. And you're like, fuck, no, I'm missing it. Like, come on, like,
No, it's all. Did you see where the bar was at though? The bar is like in the room.
Yeah, so you can still see. I don't think anyone even really waited. I'm just saying, like, in general, like, when it is a bad time at other venues or when you start to get annoyed, you're like, damn it, like, I'm missing it. But, yeah, I mean, the bar was right there. Even if you were standing in line, you could just turn and look.
I think they had 2 bar. Well, I think, 3 bars technically going with the deck who had their own private bar. Mm-hmm. I think they had one in the lobby. They had one in the room. And I think they might have had people, just like beer tub people out, on the other side of the venue. So they were definitely like, definitely prepared. I'll say that. And, it
had this feel to me of like how you're talking about, like with the corporate venue type stuff. They don't want people in these common areas standing and like blocking areas too much, so they want these lines moving. So that's like you said, they had a couple of those beer tubs. They were selling like, oh, just cans of this or blah blah. So I don't think any of those lines waited long. I think those lines were moving along, and you know what I mean. They don't want anyone standing in those common areas, blocking entrance and exits, yada yada, stuff like that. So I think everything moved, real quick.
This is what I'll say too about like, and I am not the big corporate venue guy at all. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, like I didn't think it was going to be as corporate as it was, even though it's it's run by this big company and all this. Like I thought it was going to be kind of more like a vibey, like an independent venue or something like that. But what I'll say is, it was kind of nice when and this is kind of opposite of dealing with a corporate venue, maybe like when we dealt with Temple, to where it's like, hey, this is a corporate venue, but like you guys are doing everything, we can't help you with anything, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, this was like the flip side of that spectrum, to where it was just like so efficient. It's like, and I mean, people may disagree with this, but from like our standpoint, from like the putting on the show standpoint, it was like flying first class. Yeah. As opposed to like, we're used to like, flying like in the middle seat at, like
economy,
like budget, budget economy. Yeah. On Spirit, and that's just how we do things. It's just how we operate. That's how we are able to maximize, the most for us, so like that's just how that's what we're used to. That's,
we're comfortable there. We're fine with it. You know what I mean? Like, that's how we operate.
It was like kind of nice flying first class, like it was just like, oh, here's this gigantic ramp that we rented for you. And you know what I mean? Like, all this, all of this stuff was just like, it wasn't like, hey, where's the venue guy? There were like 10 venue guys. You know what I mean? And like,
I learned firsthand that each department has its own person that you go to. And shouts to Ian, the sound guy, Chloe, the stagehand girl who did everything to help me with everyone there at the venue was super nice. They were all really great
Chloe's
people.
Like the head, Chloe like she's like the runs the venue. I'm sure.
She's like the head stage production stuff, whatever. She was the nicest person ever. Everyone was super cool. They were all super happy to help, get anything we needed. You know what I mean? They were all really great. I appreciated everyone very much that day.
Yeah. So I mean, it ended up being a good experience by the end of the night. You know what I mean? We were all hesitant, and like there was all this red tape that came up and all this stuff that was just like, oh man, I don't know how this is gonna go. And shout out to this James who actually booked us and pursued us. He was like, this is how it's gonna look right now, but I assure you, by the end of the night, if you guys perform and do what you do, like it's all gonna work in your favor. And like, it was very like, it's like, he's just like, you just got to trust me. We want you here. We want to make this work. Like, we had these conversations, that day, and I was just like, oh, all right. You know what I mean? We'll see how this goes. And, to be fair, at 11 o'clock when we went into that office at the end, he did everything he said he was going to do. You know what I mean? And they made it clear that they want us You know, they want to make that. I mean, their words, you know, which is crazy, is like that. You know, we want to make this your ECW arena. We want this to be the place where people want to see pro wrestling in Northeast Ohio. We want to make this a destination. We want you guys to be that destination. You know, and it's just like, I don't think they're saying that if our crowd doesn't show up. You know, like I know everybody is like always so kind of like, I don't know, you know, like I don't want to pay a ticket processing fee or, you know, and I get that. You know, I don't think anybody wants to do that for anything. I don't think people want to do it for basketball games or baseball games or anything, but it's just the nature of the world that we live in now. And you gotta shout out and thank all the people that came down last Friday night, because that crowd made them believe that we are a viable thing to put in that venue. And let's be honest, that's the coolest AIW has ever looked in a place, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. The crowd was hot, too, and rowdy. Everyone was loving it. People were very engaged. I think that, like you said, too, has a lot to do with the building and just how cool it looked in there. The light guy, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, but he was super cool. He was helping us out doing all kinds of stuff with the lights and just making it look super cool in there. Those pictures you posted that we got from one of the photographers that night, which they were so cool. Look at like you said, that building and the crowd and everyone in that crowd, the stage, it just looked so rad, all of it.
Yeah, I think it was, you know, it was actually their photographer that, you know, they, you know, their staff thought it was cool. Obviously, you know what I mean? This is a big national, international corporation. There's a lot of people that, you know, they just look at data, you know, but like the local staff at the Globe Iron, they like were so pumped, you know, because like they just deal with bands, and you know what I mean. You get your 2 or 3 bands, and that's it. That's the night. You know what I mean. You're gone in 3 hours. This was like a totally different thing for them, and they were loving it. And they, you know, they had their own house photographers. I think her name was Sam Scapin or Scapin, you know, something like that. She's tagged on the AIW Instagram, but they sent me, you know, all of her photos, and she took this awesome photo of right before doors where there's nobody in the room, and it's just the empty seats in the ring, and then there's, you know, obviously a photo from the same angle, like where the place is fucking jam-packed, and it's like such a cool thing to see side by side. Just like really powerful images, and like you gotta, like, we were able to get a couple of our usual fan photographers. You know, they have a camera policy, but, you know, we were able to get them media badges so they can still do, you know, what their thing as far as, you know, I know they all love taking photos at AIW. And man, like, just the way the venue looks, like, I mean, I've looked at photos from shows before, and I'm like, you know, this is cool, or this is a cool photo, but like, just the vibe and the way it's lit, and like they even have those like up lights to like make it look like pink and blue in the ceiling. You know, like there's just all of the, like, I've never seen so many incredible photos from an AIW show.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about with the light guy too, because he was having to manually go back and forth with those textures on the wall and stuff, and then go back to light the stage as we came out. So he sometimes, you know, for the most part, the audio and the lighting stuff is kind of like a babysit job where they kind of hit, you know, we hit the levels and the sound stuff, and then the lights, they just have a couple pre-recorded, you know, they hit a button and it does it. This guy was on the board all night, going back for entrances and exits to putting it back on the wall during the match to keep that ambiance during the match. So like, yeah, I mean, it looked awesome, but like we said too, shouts out to the staff, because they were really great. They really helped make that show, you know, a great experience for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, like it could have gone terrible, you know, but I mean, it didn't. You know, like it was. Yeah. I mean, I think we all were just expecting the worst for a variety of reasons, you know, and it's just like, just because it was so different than what we were used to, like,
Yeah.
like I said, like Temple or the Odeon, it's just like, we just like show up, there's like one guy there, and like, we do the show, we clean everything up, like we got to do everything. And, like even as far as like running the door and all that shit, like we did it all at all these other venues. And, we didn't have to do any of that here, and it was kind of, I think it just made us all feel a little uncomfortable, to be honest, like, because it was just, we're not used to like, and I know this sounds crazy, but like coming in as just like talent in a sense, like the AIW was coming in as like they were treating us like we were a tour, you know what I mean? Like, and, it was just different. And it's funny, like we were backstage, and I mean, the fans don't know this, but the fucking locker rooms, the green rooms are like immaculate. Like the nicest. Josh Prohibition was backstage, and he was just like, he's like, this place is too nice for wrestling. He's like, we gotta go. Like, we gotta find somewhere else. He's like, he's like, I'm retired. I'm a teacher. I'm married. He's like, I do wrestling for a little, for how weird and bizarre it is.
Yeah,
and he's he's like, we're on leather couches with flat screen TVs, and there was, shout out to Mo, there's full catering back there, like, he's just like, dude, this is like, he's like, I don't know about this. He's like, I can't get used to this. This is he's like, we need like, he's like, there's bathrooms in here, he's just like, he's like, I need a locker room where you gotta like go piss in a bucket in front of everybody or something,
Yeah. Big shouts to Mo, man. That was quite the spread of food he brought back for the catering. I know everybody was going crazy, raving about how great it was. So tremendous thanks to Mo for that. Super appreciate that. And the green rooms, like you said, I mean, they had like locking doors on them with like a number key, so like you could like lock the door. And every green room had a giant flat screen that was somehow streaming the show. Because usually we get a pretty big, crowd around the monitor and kind of in that gorilla position or peeking through the curtain and yada yada.
Nobody at gorilla now.
The dressing rooms were so sick and just so cool and like immaculate and clean and nice. Like you said, leather couches. Everybody was just in all the green rooms just watching it because what I mean. It was
fridges in all of them. Like, it was crazy.
It was crazy. It was so crazy.
I know. Like I said, it was just like we were treated like actual talent for once. And it was weird, it was like a weird thing, we were all so uneasy about it. And, we were just like, oh, fuck. Like,
there was a shower. Somebody was like, there's showers here. I'm taking a shower. I think Dom or somebody was like, I brought a towel. I'm showering. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. There was private showers.
Yeah.
Private bathrooms. Yeah. Like, I think we were just all like, oh, God. Like, they're not giving us any money when this is all said and done. There's like just too much shit in here. But it ended up working out. And, we also got a shout out. I mean, I highly doubt they listen, but, Cleveland Hair Medic and Supply, they bought 75 tickets for the show.
Yeah.
And, did like a promotion at their business, where people were, they were kind of, adding an AIW ticket on if you purchased X amount of things from their company. And they were like, we almost needed more. They were just like, they said the promotion was a hit. They got rid of all 75 tickets. So I would imagine that was like a lot of people that have never been to AIW before. I saw this dude I went to high school with. He's like, oh man, I got tickets I got a ticket from Cleveland Hair Medic. He's like, this is fucking awesome. Like he's just like having the best time. So I think that they did a lot to expose it. I would imagine probably at least 70 people to AIW for the first time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, that's a huge thing because it could be non-AIW fans who are just like, oh, this sounds cool. Let's go check this out. And then they come there and love it and I mean, how could you not? Like we said, the crowd was so hot all night. Everyone had such a great experience. So for them to bring 75 new people to the table for us is just an incredible move. So giant shouts out to them. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like the room was big, and I was just like, I don't know how this is gonna look, and like, fuck, man, it looked awesome. It looked packed, but like it wasn't overpacked to where, you know, people could move around. Like, they had the seat sections kind of roped off, so people couldn't like infringe themselves. Like, we've had a problem with that at other venues where people just start fucking, you know, fill in the gaps, you know, and like standing there and making the people in the ringside seats a little uncomfortable, and it gets a little hard to crowd control at some of these other venues. And they had it like roped off, fucking security, like backing people up. Like, the ringside seats and the stage seats were like, those were true fucking blue premium seating options, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So,
the whole place was just so sick, man. Like, super cool.
I thought I really enjoyed it. We're back there for Absolution. Hopefully we can do the same, have the same type of turnout. Front row is already sold out, so that is a good sign. You know, we would like to get that, you know, that 600 back again if possible.
Yeah, because they did open up tickets that night, I believe, at the box office while you were there. So I mean that, and that's something else
With,
they
like,
do.
Somebody said that like the fees were like, I think they paid $3 in fees.
Yeah,
if you buy it at the box
substantially
office.
less. Yeah. So that's something they do, and they open up the box office at other times, so you can run down there. Which, you know, if you're trying to, you know, everyone's trying to save a penny here or there. So with those fees, you know, it's nice to be able to buy tickets, you know, for those diehards who know they're coming. You know, you're at the show, you know, you're coming to Absolution. You might as well get the tickets there, save a couple bucks, you know, buy yourself a beer at the venue while you're there that you save on it. You know what I mean? So
Right. Yeah.
So that's a huge, and they have so many of these sales. It bears mentioning that, you know, I mean, they had how many different sales? They had all these, you know, they had a T-Mobile Tuesday sale. They had that all-in sale. They had a bunch of different sales where, you know, you can try to save a couple bucks. You know what I mean? Stuff like that adds up. You know what I mean? You save a couple of bucks on every show, you know?
One thing I want to address is, like, if you go to AXS tickets, like, the tickets look more expensive, but this is just based on the new law that was passed where ticketing services can't hide the fees until you check out. So everything's got to be, everything is put, the tax, everything is put on the price in advance. So, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, AIW is only $20, and then, you know, you checked out and it was 31 after all the fees and taxes or whatever, you know, just as an example.
Yeah.
Now it just says it's 31, you know, right off the bat, you know, but there's no hidden fees once you get to the checkout. So I think that needed to be addressed, because I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. People are just, why is everything so much more expensive now? You know what I mean? Like, there's a new law that was passed, and they have to put that, you know, it's called all-in pricing. They have to list it up front.
Gotcha. Speaking of the show and the card, you know, we talked about trying to make this a very, you know, AIW centric card, a normal card, you know, a couple nostalgia stuff here and there, but I think everything that we did really hit. I mean, I thought the surprise we had, you know, we had a mystery partner, ended up being, you know, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the show back and don't want to know the spoiler, go ahead and turn your radio down now. But we did have, you know, a surprise entrant in Tim Donst, and I thought that was very well received. You know, everything we did, I thought the crowd was really hot all night.
There's a big push to swap that out, though.
Oh yeah, we definitely have to speak on that. We talked about it on the pod, you know, the hard sale pod, about, you know, pushing to get you to wrestle, and you said, you know, people had been trying all day. I didn't stop until literally Donce was going through the curtain. I said, hey, you go out after him. I was still trying to get you out there.
Yeah, there were a lot of people once Derek pulled off that are just like, oh, well, why don't you just put Donce there, and, you know, you can come do this one, and, you know, like, people, the pressure got to me, and I got to the point to where I looked, and it was like 4:30, and I went, I'm just going to go home and get my shit, I guess. And then there's a car blocking me in, and I went, oh, that's a sign. That's a sign not to do it.
Well, Chuck Stone said that car moved 10 minutes later. It was not even 10 minutes later, that car was gone.
The moment passed. You know, the moment passed. I came back down to reality. I was really close.
Oh, you were. And me and Clemens earlier in the day were sound checking 99 Problems too. I hit that a couple times just as we were testing levels and doing this and that, and I had it locked and loaded on the playlist too. That's for sure. I also saw a ton of John Thorne, the Passion shirts in the crowd. I know Trombetta was wearing his. A couple other people had their John Thorne shirts ready because people. You say this every time is nobody wants to see that. Oh, blah blah. You are wrong. People want to see it because they showed up too. They were wearing their shirts. They were hoping. You're wrong. I'm telling you. I know firsthand. You are wrong.
I think they want to see it like they want to see it like they wanted to see Suzuki and Butterbean. I think that's how they want to see it.
It's like a Riggs line there.
Yeah, that's what I think.
No. I think you're a predominant figure in this company. People, they know it's a rare occasion, and people want to see that rare occasion. You know that you're a crowd favorite, man.
I don't know about that.
But yeah, the card, like you said, like we were just saying.
This is what I'll say about the card. It's kind of like. It was kind of like a standalone show in some ways, you know, like canon but not canon. You know, like we just wanted to put out like you know, like just a good show. You know, like sometimes, for better or worse, like my brain can't just be like matches for matches. You know, like I just can't wrap my head around the way, you know, a lot of modern indie wrestling goes, which is just like this guy versus this guy. It's going to be cool, you know? Yeah. And like, like our business just seems different, you know, like we have a lot of homegrown people and, you know, like they all kind of contribute to the makeup of the crowd and things like I don't know that is going to work in Cleveland, Ohio right now. And, I just doesn't get me too excited either, you know. So like it's hard for my brain to like get to that point, and it was hard for my brain to get to this point for this show, you know. Like I initially just wanted to do a straight AIW show, like, and just call it the 20th anniversary show, and everything was going to progress as normal. And then I kind of changed my mind on it, and I started thinking, you know, well, we can do this, and you know, like once Vincent Nothing came into the equation, I was like, well, we can get M-Dog and we can do that first match all over again. And, you know, I started just thinking of different things, you know, and obviously, you know, you had some of that, which, you know, AIW used to do some of that kind of big match booking back in the day to where you'd have everything else going on and you try to get like, you know, we were bringing in so many different talents, you know, you try to get like that first time ever or whatever. So that was kind of the idea with the, you know, the Manders and Sam thing and, you know, just trying to just put together a almost standalone show for AIW in a way. It took me a while to get there though, you know, like I was saying, I initially went back and forth because I just don't know how much people want nostalgia. And I think the nostalgia that people want, we're incapable of giving them because people have contracts and things like that. So, yeah. Although I did get a text Saturday morning that was like a pretty fucking crazy text, and it was just like, yeah, me and so were trying really hard to get there, and things just came up and it couldn't happen, and I was just like, what? Like, I'm not gonna say, but I was just like, what? Like, you didn't even fucking tell me in advance. They were just gonna surprise me too.
Yeah, it would.
Which I mean, I know you saw it. Like, you saw the text, but like,
that would have blown the roof off of that place.
I was like, what? What? Like,
yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, I don't know, you know, like, I was very happy with the show. I saw a lot of people say it was the best AIW show they've ever seen.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, 20 years in, like, to still be able to, you know I ain't winning no fucking Booker of the Year or anything like that, but, to be able to get people that think like that, you know what I mean, and give you that kind of feedback, even if it's, just a handful of people, like, it obviously, you know what I mean, it worked for somebody,
I'd
so,
vote for you. Yeah, I thought it was an incredible show. I mean, yeah.
I think that was, yeah, hey, fucking get your observer votes in, I guess.
Right.
I thought.
But the pace of the show, too, like the matches were great, but. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, I just thought it was I thought it was a great compliment to, to be 20 years in and, people are still like, this is the greatest AIW show ever, because that's just my goal always. I never really, I never want to look back. Like, I never go back and watch shows. Like, it's like, I'm always just like, I kind of like process the data in my brain of like what I thought was good, what I thought was bad. You look at the reactions on social media and stuff and make adjustments, but it's always like on to the next one in my brain. So, I thought it was a compliment, because I know people don't like people like AIW, but like they want the fucking dream matches and shit all the time. And like, I just don't think it's sustainable. So I know that bothers some of the fan base sometimes, like they don't understand that we're building a story until the story gets to the story and things like that. Like I get why people get frustrated at times, because like things are so instantaneous now. They don't want to kind of go along for the ride with some stuff, but for this show, for like people to be like, this is the best AIW show ever after 20 years, I thought was a great compliment.
Yeah, I mean, because with that, it's like, how can you keep putting together these cards that are going to surprise wrestling fans? And like you said, with everyone being so, content is so abundant with Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all these different social medias and stuff, how you are able to manage to put together these intriguing cards with intriguing stories and then make it all, come together and work. And then like I was saying too, before I so rudely interrupted you, I'm sorry about that, but like the pacing of the shows, how you put these together, it's an incredible card on paper, but then you have to go in and you have to put these matches together in a way where, one's not going to blow out the next one, to set up the next one to be ready for the main event, to not gas the crowd out for the main event type shit too. So there's just so much that goes into, these cards that for it all to come down. And like you said, to have people say the best show they've ever seen is quite the compliment. I agree.
It was a really hard show to pace. I think I made one mistake in the pacing, in my opinion. I probably should have put Vince and M-Dog earlier, just because our crowd is not super familiar with Vince still, so I think that match would have been more impactful at 2 instead of 4. I believe it was 4.
Yeah, it was 4. Allison and Jocelyn were 2.
I probably should have moved that down and kind of bumped, everything else I think was perfectly placed. I thought the opener was good. All the matches were good. I just think that it better services it, like really reintroducing Vince Nothing to our crowd at 2 instead of 4. Just because 2 and 3 were fucking crazy bangers.
Yeah.
And, super hard to follow. I thought Vince and M-Dog had a great match, but I think if you just flip it to 2 and then you go Jocelyn, a.k.a. Mander Sam, and then was it the Scramble at 5? Yeah.
Yep.
Scramble at 5. I think that is just like fucking. It's the opposite of Triller Stock. It's just going fucking up. You know what I mean? Just going that graph is going up. But there's like a little dip, for Vince and M-Dog, because they wrestled kind of like a more methodical pace, and like really built up to their spots. and it was hard because Jocelyn, aka and Manders and Sam, did fucking a ton. So that would be my only reason for, if I could do it again. And and I told them this. I said, I put you guys on later because, Matt, you usually show up late and then you sell merch, and I wanted to give you guys enough time to fucking figure it out.
Yeah.
But that would be my only. My really only switch, I think, of the pacing of the card. I think everything else was perfectly placed.
Yeah, Matt had some sick Wrestling Is Forever merch too. I stopped at this table for a minute, almost grabbed something, but I was running to pee, and I was kind of trying to be brief. I didn't want to have to pull my wallet out and stuff.
But that's why I put him on later, because he always does sell a decent amount of merch.
Sure.
So I just wanted to give him time. But in retrospect, I would have just switch things a little bit. I almost said that I was gonna have them initially open the show, and then I thought, well, Matt's gonna be selling merch and things like that, and so.
And, we did have that thought, Thursday night, you and I went out and had some birthday beverages with Mr. Filthy Tom for his birthday. He's a big brewery guy, so we went out to a brewery for his birthday, and you're like, no, we got to open it up strong with Sleepyhead. We're going back to your old music, because Tom loves to play the game.
I fucked it up on the sheet, and Dom came out first, and I wanted, that's another switch that I guess I made a mistake. I wanted Tom out first.
He did come out first.
No, Dom came out first.
No, he did not. I hit the music. It's right here. I'm looking at the sheet. Filthy Tom is first, and I know for a fact I hit him first.
Maybe I didn't. Okay, then maybe I didn't make the mistake.
Yeah.
I've been thinking this whole time I made a mistake.
No, you're good. I mean, I'm looking at the sheet. You had it, and I always go by what's on the sheet unless I say it to them, because I usually let them know before they go out. Hey, so while the other match is going on, they're usually standing waiting in Gorilla. I'll tell them, hey, so and so first, and if they ever want to switch it, usually if anyone wants to switch it, they see the board, they'll come up and tell me, hey, we have this idea, so somebody's going to jump or this, that, the other, and they'll change it. But yeah, no, I know for a fact that was the order.
All right, well, good. Then I'll stand by my original statement that I only made one mistake.
Yeah, because we discussed that. We're like, we're starting out hot, Sleepyhead's hitting, we're getting that crowd going, you know what I mean? And I think it did, too. It really worked. I thought the Freeview match was great, too. I thought everything on the card really, really worked. For a 20th anniversary show, I thought the performers, really knocked it out of the park.
And, I mean, I'm going to say it to the end of time, but that is why we are so adamant to the point of begging on this podcast to fill these venues, because people go out and they switch it to a whole different gear when the place is packed, and the fans and the crowd, they are that, that the third man, so to speak, in, every match. And it really just changes the dynamic of the whole show when it's packed. Now, if we had that show in this cool venue and there's 100 people in there, I don't think it's as good.
No.
I don't think people work as hard. I don't think people feed off the energy. I don't think people, it is so paramount to keep filling these buildings. And that's why we wanted to go to smaller places than Temple Live to get that atmosphere back and just energy back, because the energy, it fucking, you know what I mean? Like the energy, it's like a fucking portal that goes right into the ring, and people work so much harder in those kind of environments.
Oh, and you could see it too. You could see the looks on their faces because we had all the wrestlers, in the front of the house. But then when we opened doors, everyone goes in the back, and we talked about the green rooms and how great it was. So everyone was really hanging in the back. No, not really anyone. Too many people were around Gorilla. That area was empty for a little.
A lot of people were seeing, especially the first half. They are seeing the crowd for the first time when they walk out.
Yeah, so they were coming up, and we had that big kind of area behind the fuck, what is the word I'm thinking of? Behind our curtain or whatever, the curtains that we had up.
Pipe and drape.
Pipe and Drape, thank you. Sorry, they come up behind there, and then really finally we're getting a good look at the crowd, at how fucking packed it was and how cool it looked with the lights and just everyone, how loud it was. People were really feeling it, and people were coming up into Gorilla and go, holy shit, like wow, like goddamn, like really looking and realizing how pumped everyone was, and yeah, and they without a doubt kick it up to another level. I mean, that's just goes without saying for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we can keep that up, you know what I mean? We got to do it at Penguin City, we got to do it at the Shrine, and then we got to do it again in the Globe these next few shows. But you're going to see the level of work continue to improve. I mean, it's like, if you're a wrestling fan, like, come out to these shows and, force their hand to work harder. In a way, I mean, it's kind of like a weird thing to say, but it's so true. Like, guys can call their match, they can want to have a good match, but then they go out there and there's 75 people there. It's just not the same level of what they're doing. But when there's 650 people there and it's jam packed and loud and fucking energetic, it just creates a whole different animal. And, I will live and die by that statement that, we need to continue to pack these venues because it's gonna force the wrestling overall to get better.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, big time. It was a good night overall. We do got to mention too, we had a little callback. We had Steve Guy came back and ended in ring announce for the tag belts. Would be remiss if we didn't mention Steve Guy came back doing his thing. Pedro.
He relinquished the reins for one.
Yeah.
I think Steve did commentary on the Freeview as well.
Okay.
But yeah, he was, he's just doing a shift over the Flatiron and took his break and popped on over.
Yeah, it's right over. I drove past it on my way there, right over that bridge. But yeah, and then we headed on over to Old 86 for our after party, which again we have to talk about because I think like what you were saying is kind of trending towards those older AIW days where you get that full AIW experience. They had the outside backyard kind of bar area that they have in the back there, and everyone was out there hanging out, and it was just a great time, man. A lot of fans, saw a ton of fans there, everybody hanging out.
Yeah, I mean, I said it in the Discord, and I know I said it, kind of in our, office chat. But, like, I know we're all getting older and all that stuff, but fuck did I feel like I was in a time machine last Friday. Like,
yeah,
it was just, like, everything the way it used to be. Awesome show, packed venue, fucking tremendous in-ring, after party, fucking packed full of fans and wrestlers. Like, so many people were there taking pictures and just having fun, and it's just like, this is the way it's supposed to be, and it never really has gotten back to that since COVID, in my opinion. Like, we've had some glimmers here and there, but it's usually like a half, it's like, oh, great show, good crowd, nobody at the after party, or fucking, you know what I mean, great show, no after party. Great show, just the wrestlers at the after party.
The one time it was just me, you, Fonz, and Tom.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really bad draw for the after party.
Cool Ass was there too. Cool Ass came too.
Yeah, fucking 5 people. That was recently. Like
that wasn't fair though, because we didn't have an after party. We had an Akron show, and we all had to head back to Cleveland anyways. And we're like, well, where we're going, we might as well go say what's up to Parker Pierce, So that didn't really count. I just thought it was funny that the one after party, it was just us 5.
Yeah, like, hey, you got any chicken fingers that's still for sale here? But no, like, I felt like it felt good. I mean, even Pedro came to the after party. And
Pedro was at the after party, yeah.
And Tom Dunn and Pedro, like, they walked through.
It was awesome. That put the biggest smile on my face when I walked out the door to go out that in that middle area to walk to the back part, and I turned around and saw Pedro and Tom Dunn. I was like, hell yeah, we are so back, baby! This is awesome.
First ever after party appearances.
Yeah, dude, it was awesome.
Yeah, it just felt it felt good. Like the energy felt good. Everything felt good about last Friday, honestly. Yeah. And I just hope that we can keep that momentum heading into this summer, because we have a lot of shows and they all appear, on paper to be super fun. The fucking Penguin City thing. I'm telling you.
I cannot wait.
You could get general admission tickets for $15. There's hotels right across the street. Just fucking come out to this. It's going to be fun. Little Guido's going to be there in a brewery. That is enough to get you to spend $15, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
As it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we're just trying to create these fun experiences again that we kind of, we didn't necessarily get away from them, but like things just, kind of, I don't know, like ran out of gas there a little bit. You know what I mean? Everything just kind of fucking settled for a little bit, and it's just like going through motions. It was like that excitement coming out of COVID, and then like back to the routine, and then it just like experimenting with different places and after parties and things like that, and it's just like kind of like everything kind of just like faded a little bit. But like last Friday, it felt like the perfect attack. Globe Iron, 4-minute drive to Old 86, fucking, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it just felt so good. I think I feel like we're on the cusp of like a run like that, like when it was just like the Mount Carmel to Funhouse or Good Company, you know what I mean? Odeon to fucking Funhouse or Good Company, like all that, like that run of several years where it was just like every show was so much fun. Like the wrestling was good, the fucking atmosphere was fun, the after party was even more fun. The after party was sometimes fucking a bigger highlight than the show, as weird as that sounds. Like just everybody together having
Kingston
fun,
doing karaoke at Good Company.
Yeah, like just shit like that. Like it just it felt like we like we had something, you know what I mean, with the Globe Iron and the Old 86. And we're gonna try to do that again in July. I'm pretty sure that Pants is gonna want to book the after party again. I think they're happy with the turnout.
Oh yeah.
So again, you know what I mean? 1-2 punch, and then we're gonna take a little break and go back to the Globe for Hell on Earth, and hopefully do it again. We're trying to kind of space things out a little bit, and I think looking into 2026, we're probably gonna go like, okay, instead of fucking 8 shows in Cleveland and 8 shows in Akron, you're probably gonna get 5 or 6 in Cleveland, you know what I mean? 3 in Akron, 3 in Youngstown, stuff like that, to where we're going to kind of spread it out a little more, I think, and make everything feel more special and less skippable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it just took a little minute to kind of recalibrate and kind of get our footing back and kind of realize what, the things that we liked the most about it, and or what we thought worked the best. And that was kind of your plan and your vision with the going smaller. And I think it maybe people heard that at first and kind of didn't understand what you meant by it, or didn't really get the vision. But I think now everything, especially last Friday especially, is exactly what your vision was, and kind of getting back to that old AIW that we've described, and this just entire AIW experience, and kind of drawing that fear of missing out. You don't want to miss out on you're not going to want to miss out on Absolution at this building again. I mean, it's going to be an incredible show, incredible after party. It's that's exactly what you were trying to get across, and I feel like Friday was the total embodiment of that, and finally came to fruition all together in every aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, people, I feel like looked at me like I was crazy when I said I think that there's growth by going smaller, and people were just like, I don't understand what you're saying.
Right.
We're putting 600-700 people in the temple, and you want to cap that at less. And I said, I think in a building like that, people know that they have. If they decide they want to go, they're going to come. And if they don't, they don't. But, like, when you go to a smaller place, like, we saw it. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people got shut out last Friday that thought that they could just, you know what I mean? They could wait. And then they didn't release tickets until about, officially release the tickets until, like, an hour before the show. And I think people, how do you know if you can reach all those people? You know what I mean? At that amount of time. Like, I think people had already decided, like, they can't come. But, it kind of, like, creates more excitement around the events because, going to the Roxy, and we're going to go back to the Roxy, too, this year. But, like, going to the Roxy, that's smaller than the Globe Iron. That's going to be capped even smaller. Yeah. I just think it creates, more excitement around the shows. Like, I really feel like it makes everything feel bigger in a sense. Like when we were at the temple, it was great. You know what I mean? It's great to put over 700 people in a building, but like, it was almost like we were too small to get big anyway. So, like, everything was just vanishing, right? And it's just like, think about the temple, right? Like, we're going to the temple, huge building. Who's giving us after parties? Dive bar. Huge fucking downtown club. A lot of our fans were not vibing with it. The wrestlers liked it. Some of the fans liked it. Universally not as well liked as AIW, going to Good Company or the Funhouse, and like, you got to kind of take a step back and look and go like, yeah, this is fun. All the wrestlers like it, but it's lacking the fan experience that we want to give, like it's loud, it's busy, like it's just different. I think going smaller to a place like the Roxy or the Globe, which the Globe is big, but like it's way smaller than the temple. It just creates a better vibe. And then Old 86, I think, for Cleveland is like the perfect place.
Yeah, I think it just kind of gets lost sometimes a little bit how big the temple really is too. That is a giant venue. And originally too, to say, to pull back the curtain or how much, I think we've said this before, but to go in that, we wanted to go in that big room. That was always a dream of yours because of the ECW thing, but we were put in that room initially because of like air conditioning in that intense asylum being broken, and they were doing some renovating and blah, blah, blah. They basically told us day of, like, we're just going to have to put you in here, and then that just kind of became the thing too. You know what I mean? So we're almost kind of put in that situation too.
Right. Like we didn't work up to it or have like, hey, this is a goal. You know what I mean? Like GCW,
yeah.
Like, we want to fill the Hammerstein. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they're just like, oh, hey, you guys are here now. And then like the first time wasn't.
Just happened.
The first time was cool, but it wasn't anything special. You know what I mean? And then they're like, oh, you guys are there again now. You know what I mean? And then like. Just became where we were at. You could do it all over and plan it. You know what I mean? You stay in that small room and then you say, hey, for Absolution, we're going in the big room. You know what I mean? Like, and you really push it and promote it and try to do something big. But we just didn't have that option, and you got to play the cards that you're dealt. And, that's what we did. And I think that there was great success there, but again, our success, I think, lives and dies by fan experience and, fan excitement. And I think people liked going to the shows. I think the shows were good, but it wasn't what Mount Carmel or the Odeon was, as far as fan experience, fan interaction, just fan connection. So that's why I wanted to go to smaller places, after we decided to, dissolve the relationship with the temple.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of fan experiences, too, we were talking about, this Youngstown Brewery show. Little Guido will be there. And if you're an ECW person, big ECW fan, you definitely want to get tickets to this because Little Guido will be in the house and we are going to be at a brewery. So my man is going to be having some beverages. And Little Guido, as far as I know, every other show we've done with him, he's not really a hide in the back kind of guy. If you're an ECW guy and you want to get some time in with your guy Little Guido, belly up to that bar because my man will probably be there having some pops. And that is an experience I can tell you is worth the ticket price alone. We have had Little Guido a couple times and I cannot wait. The man is a great time. We also got Evil Uno. We got the Headbangers, which is a personal favorite of mine. I was a big-time Headbangers guy. I've always kind of been a punk rock, heavy metal kid. And when I saw guys like that in WWE, it really, I really kind of connected with those dudes and was a big fan of Mosh and Thrash for a long time. So I'm really jazzed for our Penguin City return. So get your tickets for that coming up. It'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, 2 weeks. We got to pack it. You know what I mean? We got to pack it again. If you want us to keep coming to Youngstown, they're not going to want us there if we don't bring a crowd. That's how it is with all these venues. But, Youngstown, obviously, we did very well when we went there in February. So, we got to kind of repeat that performance. We still have some front row, second row, third row tickets left. So we got a lot of work to do for June 7th at Penguin City. But like I said, it's, if you're coming from Cleveland or Akron, it's a nice, quick little drive. If they have awesome fucking beers, I know that we partook in quite a few of them when we were there in February. But there's a hotel across the street. There's a lot of cheap hotels a little bit further. If you want to park and Uber, there's a ton of hotels, in the area within 15 minutes or so. Mm-hmm. Make a day of it, you know what I mean? It's summertime, June 7th. Come fucking party with a Little Guido, watch some wrestling. We're gonna stay there for the after party until they kick us out. And it's a huge facility. If you've never been there, they got pinball machines and all kinds of games and stuff. So it's a good fun time. I'm sure in the summertime, because we were there in February, but it looked like they have a fucking cool patio, all kinds of, it really has, kind of the ingredients to become a very, very cool regular stop for us. If we can keep putting people in there, that's the plan. You're going to see some Youngstown area wrestlers. Tommy Rain's going to be back, Jeff Steele, Zoe Sky, Joey Vincent Martini. You're going to see some different wrestlers on these shows. We're trying to cater to the local market and, make it a fun time. Especially these brewery shows, they're going to be very hyper focused on a fun experience. And is it going to be the Booker of the Year best show ever from last week? I wouldn't take that bet, but it's going to be probably a more funner, looser vibe on June 7th.
I'm really hoping the fan word of mouth kind of got around from some of the fans that were there because the place is great. Like you said, there's tons of room. There's all kinds of pinball machines, video games, a giant bar with literally every beer seltzer kind of choice. They have their brewery beers. They have other, if you're not a big brewery beer kind of person, they do have regular domestics, imports. They have seltzers, full bar with, mixers and liquor, stuff like that. They had 3 different food trucks that park and inside of the place. So there was a ton of different food options. The building was great.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful that we can establish this as a routine stop. Like I said, ideally the goal in 2026 would be let's do 3 in Youngstown, 3 or 4 in Akron, 5 or 6 in Cleveland, and then kind of mix in some other things along the way. But I would like to make Youngstown a regular 2-3 time of year stop kind of place, and hopefully continue to bring some good wrestling out there. It's a bigger place, get some meet and greet people like we have Evil Uno and Headbangers and Little Guido, who will all be doing meet and greets on June 7th. So don't miss your chance, you know what I mean, to come out and have fun. Also, all of them are going to wrestle too. So,
hell yeah.
It's not every day where the meet and greet people that we book also perform. All of them are going to perform on June 7th. So, that should be super cool. The card's going to be dropping probably today or tomorrow on Patreon. And then we're going to start really pushing.
Well, you heard him. If you're not signed up for our Patreon, get on there, patreon.com/Absolute Intense Wrestling. If you're not signed up for our YouTube channel, please get on our YouTube. Sign up for a premium membership so you get all those live streams. You get the whole catalog of stuff that we got put up there, all kinds of backstage stuff. Everything's up there on the YouTube.
I'm gonna
Check it out.
That's actually what I'm going to be doing after we're done recording. I'm going to do a lot of work on some of that stuff. We've recorded a ton of premium content for the YouTube Premium and Patreon. I'm going to roll some new stuff out on that. And I do want to shout out just to everybody that has signed up for the YouTube subscription service. It was very slow starting and almost looking like it wasn't going to work. And, I had a goal of, I hope just one day we can get 100 people signed up, a very modest goal. But I'm going to tell you, those first couple months, seemed impossible, right? Seemed like there was just no growth at all. And,
yeah,
we broke the 100 last Friday, which shocked me, I couldn't believe it. Even saw some old school names on there, like Adam Circumstance signed up,
nice.
Just fucking super cool. You know what I mean? To have broken that goal, we started in September. I wanted to get it to 100 by this September, and we got it in May. So, now we could set the goal for 200. I truly think that this is the wave of the future as far as people taking things in-house and getting off these subscription services and, doing it all yourself. I mean, I understand YouTube/Google is not totally in-house, but they allow you the freedom to do it when you want, how you want to do it. And, I truly think that you're going to see a lot more of this rolling out. I don't think the subscription service model, business, whatever, is beneficial for promoters at this time. And, I think that's apparent by the news that's been happening and how many people are leaving these types of services. And I think, you're going to see more people setting up these, alternative forms of distribution, be it Patreon or these YouTube premium services. So that also made me feel really good to look on Saturday and go, holy shit, we broke the goal last night, Yeah. So that was reassuring, just positive reinforcement for the decisions that I made that seemed like not great decisions. You know what I mean? I took a big gamble in August. I walked away from that. I walked away from our venue partners, and decided to kind of change everything, be it how we distribute video, yeah, where we're going, for venues, things like that. And, yeah, I mean, knock on wood, it seems like at least as of last Friday, it works. Now, the bottom is going to fall out probably eventually, but we're not dead yet.
Not dead yet. That's right. I think, yeah, I definitely think it was like kind of like pushing all your chips in the middle kind of moment. And I think, you're finally starting to see some of those, not reaping the benefits, but you're seeing that your plan and your vision, what you wanted is working and was right.
Yeah.
Anything else? Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I think like I'm very realistic. I don't think we're taking over the world with AIW. I don't think we're going to be the number one independent with AIW. I don't necessarily want to be that. I just want to make something cool for Cleveland and Northeast Ohio, and hopefully other people want to watch it and like it, outside of this area. But that's ultimately always been the goal, like a promoter that probably shouldn't be named, that can't be named anymore. You used to say, why do you run Cleveland? So, I live here. You know what I mean? Like, I live here.
Why Cleveland, he always said. Yeah.
Like, why don't you do these shows in X, Y, and Z market? I said, well, I live here. I don't live there. That's what we want to be. I want to do something cool for Northeast Ohio. I don't even want to go to fucking Columbus, like I want to
unless
do
it's
like
for the brewery. Those were good times.
Yeah, but like I want to do Cleveland, Akron, Youngstown, like maybe a little west, I don't know, but that's all we want to do, and like I don't think we're reinventing the wheel here or changing people's lives by any means, but I want to do something cool for wrestling fans in this area, and that's really the goal, and to be able to see some of it working again, and again we just did 20 years. I obviously don't have it all figured out, because we're still experimenting and we're still trying all these different things, but I think that's how you remain active and in business. There's a fan that came to AIW like early, like in 2007 and 8, and like will constantly tweet about like what my state of mind may have been or position on things then, and it's like always tweeting at AIW these things, and it's just like, dude, that's fucking almost 20 years ago. Like, people evolve, people change, like circumstances create opportunities, and you have to be able to bob and weave and change your thinking. I think that's what we've always done. I think that's what I've always done, and we're going to continue to do that. But for this sort of drastic change, because there was like a meeting about it, and I explained that we're going to be making drastic changes, and I didn't know how it was going to go, but I really felt that it needed to be done. Now, you know what I mean, less than a year later, to see some of it working is motivating and reassuring, because there was I was considering like, hey man, maybe this isn't working, I went in very depth on our Patreon with kind of like a long explanation to all that. But there's a lot of things that happened that made it seem like maybe this should go away, and to now, have made that 20th show happen, and people seem to really enjoy it, and to see the YouTube subscription numbers going up and the Patreon numbers going up and all of that stuff finally months later starting to show some growth. It's reassuring.
Yeah, absolutely. So shouts out to us. Shouts to AIW for making it happen. Shouts to all the fans, everyone.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to the fans, honestly.
Yeah.
There's so much content out there and options and different things to do. The fact that we're able to put 600 plus people in a building in downtown Cleveland on a Friday night is a pretty fucking cool accomplishment. And that's not lost on me. And to be able to see these YouTube numbers going up and things like that, seeing people willing to like spend their money, it's a cool feeling, like you're not able to see that tangible evidence and growth when you're on a service and they're just, paying you 6 months later. You know what I mean? Like you don't see any of that. So to be able to, see the growth and see the progression, it's awesome. And, shout out to really all the fans that are continuing to support us all these years later.
Hell yeah. As always, big shout to the fans. Appreciate everyone. Anything else you want to get to before we get out of here? And we didn't really open up to questions this week. We kind of just got in here and jumped on about, talking venue and, our 20th anniversary, that type of stuff. So we didn't really open up questions. But.
I'm just hopeful that we can pack Youngstown and Akron next month. And then, there's kind of a little gap there to Absolution. I would like to see all three of those shows busy. You know what I mean? We dropped ticket prices in Youngstown and Akron. You can get into both, you know what I mean? Both shows are $15 GA. We're trying to make accommodations in adjustments to get people in these venues. And, that's another thing we did is we kind of tweaked ticket pricing and things like that. We're trying to make it more accessible for everybody. And, it makes the bottom line a little difficult, but, if I was in this to get rich, I mean, I would have I chose the wrong fucking thing to do with my life. I
think you would have quit a long time ago if that was the case.
Yeah. I'm not in this to get rich. We're just, as long as we can cover our bills and, do something cool, that's, it's pretty much the goal at this point. It's always been the goal. I have a real job that I go to. You know what I mean? Like, as long as this isn't costing me money for my real job, fuck it. We'll do it forever.
Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about. That's a way to end the pod right there. Hell yeah, we'll do it forever. So get those tickets for Youngstown, Penguin City Brewery. We got Evil Uno, the Headbangers, and Little Guido coming in for our meet and greets, and all having matches. And then get your tickets for Absolution. Those are on sale at the AXS on the AXS app. We also will be at the Tadmore Shrine in June for our rap show. We're bringing Priscilla Kelly in for her AIW debut, so get your tickets for that. Tadmore, those are on ours. Tadmore is on ours. Our Eventbrite, I believe, correct? We got a lot of different ticket apps going on right now.
Penguin City and Tadmore Shrine are on Eventbrite.
Excellent. So get those tickets, and we'll see everybody out. Check out, if you haven't been to a show, come check out What You're Missing, man, because it's a great time. For myself, for everybody at AIW, for John Thorne, we'll see you next time. Thanks.